Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to talk about something really important. Why we might need to totally rethink how we understand certain behaviors, especially when it comes to autistic people. We're going to dig into how what we see on the surface, well, it's often just the tip of the iceberg. There's this whole complex internal world driving it all. Okay, let's start with something that I bet a lot of parents out there will find, well, painfully familiar. This quote here really captures that daily struggle at the dinner table. You know, that feeling of a constant battle over something that's supposed to be simple, like eating. It's just filled with so much frustration and confusion.
But what if we've been getting the signals all wrong? What if what we're quick to label as defiance or, just picky eating is actually a totally logical response to a different way of experiencing the entire world? All right, let's really dive into this.
To get this, we really have to look past the behavior itself. We've got to try and understand the internal sensory world that so many autistic people are navigating, every single day. So for an autistic brain, the world can be, well, an incredibly intense place. Think about it. Things most of us just automatically filter out, like the hum of a fridge, or the flicker of a fluorescent light, or even just the pressure of making eye contact. All of that can create this huge cognitive load. And this isn't just a preference, right? It's a neurological reality. The brain is literally more sensitive to all this input, and that can lead to some pretty serious discomfort and overstimulation. And this different sensory experience, it actually extends inwards too. It can affect something called interoception. Basically, that's our sense of what's going on inside our own bodies. So just imagine for a second, not being able to clearly feel when you're hungry, or feeling totally full after just a few bites. I mean, that would fundamentally change your entire relationship with food, wouldn't it?
And this is where you can really see how those internal differences lead to the external behaviors we see. So avoiding eye contact, it isn't about being rude. It's a way to cut down on that overwhelming sensory input so you can actually process the conversation. And preferring the same foods over and over, that's not stubbornness. It's about finding safety in a world that can feel really unpredictable. Every single one of these is a logical, practical coping strategy.
Sometimes these struggles with food are actually part of a recognized condition called Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder, or ARFID for short. And the really crucial thing to understand here is that unlike many other eating disorders, ARFID has nothing to do with body image. It's all about a response to sensory sensitivities, intense anxiety, or even fear from a past bad experience with food, like choking. Okay, now look at this. What's so fascinating here is the massive difference in how common this is. You can see it right there on the chart. While Arfid is definitely a thing in the general population, it is so much more common among autistic people. That huge overlap, it's practically screaming at us that there's a deep, deep connection here between autistic sensory processing and these very specific challenges with food. All right, so all of this brings us to a much bigger question, doesn't it? When we see these kinds of differences, are we right to just label them as deficits? Or maybe, just maybe, they're challenging our own rigid ideas about what normal is supposed to look like. Let's just take eye contact for a minute. In a lot of Western cultures, right, we're taught from a young age that it's a sign of respect and that you're paying attention. But as you can see here, that is absolutely not a universal rule, not even close. In many East Asian, Indigenous Australian, and Middle Eastern cultures, direct eye contact can come off as aggressive or even disrespectful. It just goes to show you that our social rules are made up, they're cultural, they're not some absolute truth.
And for autistic people, how they handle eye contact is all about managing their brain's resources. So both avoiding it completely to reduce that sensory noise and locking in an intense stare, kind of like a set it and forget it strategy, are totally valid. They're just different ways to achieve the very same goal, freeing up enough brain power to actually focus on the conversation.
And get this, here's a really fascinating piece of recent research. You know that awkward, uncomfortable feeling you might get when someone isn't making eye contact with you? Well, it turns out that feeling is mostly experienced by the non-autistic person in the conversation. This kind of flips the whole thing on its head, right? It suggests the problem isn't a deficit in one person, but a simple mismatch in communication styles between two people. So if we start to accept these as just differences, not deficits, well, that completely changes how we should approach support. The whole game shifts from trying to fix a person to instead changing the environment and adjusting our own expectations. I mean, our intention to help can go one of two ways. It can either do more harm or it can actually heal. It all comes down to the approach.
This slide lays out those two paths so clearly. On one side, you have help that harms, a standard, loud, overwhelming environment that just leads to shutdown and trauma. But on the other, you have help that helps, an approach that actually considers sensory needs, and that's what leads to a successful recovery. The difference isn't just small, it's absolutely profound.
And this quote here from nutritionist Margot White, wow, it just captures this new mindset perfectly. It really is about letting go of our own rigid ideas about what eating should look like. It's about remembering that simple phrase, fed is best, and understanding that piling on pressure just leads to more fear and shutdown, not progress. The real goal is to build a relationship with food that's based on trust, not on fear.
So, you might be wondering, what can I actually do? Well, the good news is, it doesn't have to be some huge, complicated thing. These simple, practical accommodations you see here can make a world of difference. Things like just accepting that someone is listening to you, even if they're looking away, or trying to have conversations side by side, like when you're in the car or walking. And honestly, the most important thing? Just ask. Just ask them how you can best accommodate their needs.
So why does all this matter? Why is this reframe so important? Because shifting our perspective away from judgment and towards understanding, it has massive, real-world consequences. At the end of the day, it's about creating a world where people don't have to burn themselves out, just masking their authentic selves to try and fit in. When we make accommodations, when we actually respect these differences, we end up building stronger relationships. We foster better mental health for everyone, and we open the door for so much more authentic and meaningful communication.
And that really leaves us with this one big thought to chew on. We spend so much time trying to teach one single right way to interact, one right way to eat, one right way to listen. But what if real, meaningful connection isn't about forcing everyone to follow the same rules, but about building a world that actually respects and makes room for all of our different ways of being?